Hey guys, Coach Chris here, back with another video. Alright, round 3. So if you thought the last round's performance was shameful, losing to someone I outrated by 300 points, well, guess what? Outrated this opponent by 500 points and did everything I could to lose. Let's see how and learn from it. I opened with d4. Opponent responded d5. Playing the Queen's Gambit. Black starts with c6, so it still could be a Slav. Could be a Semi-Slav. I develop my knight, and he does the same. And after this very typical position, we get a Semi-Slav. And the line I play against the Semi-Slav, or at least the one I had prepared for this tournament, was c takes. And the main move by a mile, and the only one that makes sense, is e takes, opening up this light squared bishop. My opponent didn't do that. He played d takes. And now black is just in a awful exchange Slav. And the difference in the game ought to be that I can get this bishop out of the pawn chain, play e3, develop the light squared bishop, castle, and then this bishop will just always be terrible. And so white should always have a very safe, very stable advantage in that position. So that's how it starts. Bishop f4, bishop d6. Here I didn't want to take and develop black's queen for him, so I dropped back. Black took, and I took back with the h-pawn. These pawns are not weak, and I have the open h-file, so it's a good trade for white. Black develops, I play e3, preparing to develop, and black plays queen b6. Black is not castled, black does not have the pieces developed, so black really has no business attacking the pawns. And the coolest way to highlight this, as the engine points out, is to just play a3. The point being, if black takes on b2, then he actually loses the queen. So all of these potential escape squares are covered by the pieces, and black just loses the queen in the game. So a3 is a nice little refutation there, and when you start with the idea that queen b6 can't be right because black has not addressed castling or development and is moving the queen out early in the game, then that helps you find a3. Of course, I was committed to playing just awful chess this tournament, and so I played queen d2, which laterally protects the pawn. But that's about all you can say for the move. It's kind of asking for knight e4 at some point. Not a great move. With the dark squared bishops off, and so the dark square is no longer really being an issue. Could have played b3, could have played rook b1. I like those a lot more than the move that I played, queen d2. Not a very natural square for the queen in these Slav structures. And my opponent returns the favor, plays a very unprincipled move, developing a piece for the second time. Now b3, still a good move, taking away the c4 square from the knight, which was the only point. What I did was play knight e5, and the idea is to have two attackers on the c4 square so the knight can't jump in. And while the engine likes it a lot, it's moving a already developed piece twice in the opening. I need to develop my bishop. I need to get castled. And so while objectively fine, not a very practical choice, and I really liked black's move here, immediately offering the exchange. If I take, then black gets to develop his piece, gets rid of my active piece. Black's doing just fine there. And instead I played what the engine likes the best. I played knight a4, again though moving an already developed piece twice. The idea is that the queen can't go here to maintain control or protection of the knight, and so it has to go back to d8. I thought I was winning a piece, or at least getting a crushing attack here, and just did not execute. Again, tactics over everything. Even though black just had horrible strategic understanding blocking in his light squared bishop. Doesn't matter whenever you can calculate and your opponent can't. Bishop b5, pinning the knight. b6 defends the knight on a5, and I thought I was just completely winning here. b4, black counters with a6, attacking my bishop, and so I thought I could just take, bishop takes, and then I played knight takes d7, and what I thought was going to happen is that black has to recapture, and then I fork. Or if he didn't want to get forked, then king takes this way, and I just win this knight. What I completely missed, because I was extremely shaky on my tactics this tournament, was that black has a very nice intermediate move, knight c4, and that's what he played. Before we keep going, let's look at how I should have played this. Here the engine points out that, hey, just take the knight, black recaptures, and then queen b4, preventing the king from castling, attacking the bishop. Bishop goes back to b5, and then you can simply take here. Black can't recapture because that runs into a pin, so that's no good. And so really, once the dust settles, white ends up with a very healthy protected pass pawn that's very close to promotion. White just needs to consolidate, trade off the pieces, and win that endgame, which should be very doable. This is an extra pawn, by the way. Completely missed that very nice in between move from my opponent, and now I'm just worse. Knight c4 hits. I regret queen d2 immensely. Play queen e2. Black captures, hitting my knight, and so now I have to embark on a long journey to get the knight back into the game, which takes so much time. Here I didn't want to take and give my opponent a protected pass pawn pretty close to promotion, so I had to leave it there on that strong post. Finally get my knight to a decent square, but it has taken a lot of time. Here, play a4, which again the engine thinks is okay, but it's yet another missed opportunity to castle and develop my pieces. Here I played queen a5. The idea was to fix this pawn as a target so that the knight is always hitting it, and so I thought endgames ought to be pretty good for me, but black has now castled and strikes in the center with e5. That's very principled chess. I am uncastled. I decided to take, which again the engine thinks is fine, but opening up the position when you're behind in development is always a recipe for disaster. Queen takes, hitting my rook in the corner, and so I finally castle. Black develops another piece. I develop my rook finally, and then d4 hits. And I couldn't see a way out of this. I thought I was just collapsing on e3, and that's actually what happened. The engine points out that the way you get out of this is to remember that you played a5 for a reason, fixing the a6 pawn, and then you play queen f3, and after takes, let's say queen takes with check. If you take, knight takes with the fork, trade off rooks so you're not getting forked, move this rook, let's say, for example, the knight goes to c4, well now you can take that pawn, and white's actually better there. Obviously didn't see any of that in the game. What I played was rook fe1, and I'm just busted here. Black takes, f takes immediately looks like it's just completely losing for me, and it is, but the engine says that's the best option. What I did was take on d8 first, black recaptures, and now I took, which can't be any better. Black takes my g3 pawn, leaving the e3 weakness, and now Black's always looking at this rook, so I can't even move my queen to an active square. Played rook f1 to try to get away from that, and I thought I was being clever here. Black blitzed out knight takes e3, I blitzed out rook f3, and my opponent, thinking he had blundered, collapsed into a little think, and then realized that he was just completely winning. Eventually played the very pretty rook d1 check. What I thought was going to happen is I take the rook, knight takes rook, and then I take the queen, and I'm up a rook. Instead what happened was queen takes rook, queen takes g2 checkmate. Again, just a awful performance by me. Starts with lack of development, sort of peaks with not finding the key in between move. If I had seen that, then hopefully I would have realized that knight or pawn takes b4 is really the only move, and it turns out to be a very strong one. And then this is either, practically it's very difficult. The breakthroughs happen because I'm behind in development, and I just didn't see a way out of it. So didn't take enough time, not creative enough, not tactically sharp enough to get out of it, and then I just collapse. So back-to-back disasters. Both games not playing principled chess. My opponent in the second game played very principled chess, and this one not really so much in the opening, but got back on the right track in the middle game and punished me. So, reminder to play principled chess no matter how much you outrate your opponent or how much lower you are than your opponent. If you develop your pieces, control the center, keep your king safe, only good things can happen to you. So, thanks for watching. Keep grinding those tactics, and stay tuned for the final round.